There's a couple of really funny editorials, essays in that book about time and the idea that the woke have this crazy idea that, people who lived 500 years ago really should have known better.
Yeah.
They have this magic moral time machine where they imagine what they would be doing in 1758, and it's always better than what
And it wouldn't have been using the term master bedroom.
No. That's another thing, yes.
Right?
And again, that's another point I'm always trying to make, is that the difference between old school liberals like me and the woke is things like that. People, I think, have this idea that wokeness is an extension of liberalism, and it very often is something that goes so far, it actually turns around and becomes the opposite.
Yes.
Bill Maher sat down with Megyn Kelly for what seemed like a normal conversation. But when they started talking about woke culture, things got heated fast. Voices rose, and the interview turned into a real debate. Maher argued that woke culture isn't part of traditional liberalism, it's a radical new movement. It was surprising to see him clearly separate himself from the far left. Get ready, because this discussion gets intense.
The problem with wokeness is nobody ever gets canceled for being too woke. That's how you wind up with men can get pregnant.
Yeah.
Because you can say the most ridiculous thing, and because no one wants to be the one who's called out on Twitter, they'll be like, "Oh, sure, men pregnant."
Sure.
I've always said that. I saw a dude who was glowing today. It's just so ridiculous what you can get away with saying, and just the intimidation factor.
Maher is boldly calling out his fellow liberals, the ones who quietly roll their eyes at the extreme left but are too afraid to speak up. He believes many agree that woke culture has gone too far, but they stay silent out of fear of being labeled or cancelled. Maher says this silence is a big part of the problem. He urges more people to stand up against the extremes of wokeism before it destroys the moral and cultural values the country is built on. For him, this isn't just politics, it's about society as a whole. If people don't push back soon, he warns that fear and conformity will erase everything liberalism once stood for.
You don't seem like someone who's ever felt that. Have you managed to escape
Felt
ever
what?
Afraid of blowback from your own side?
Well, I mean, come on, I've been on 31 years. It comes with the territory every week. When people say to me on Saturday, "How'd the show go last night?" I'd say, if I'm not canceled today, it went great. I mean, they're always looking to take you down, and the knives are always out. But, I feel like at this point, after 31 years, if they wind up getting me, okay, I had a pretty good run.
That's right.
And also, I think there's just a lot of people who have my back, and they appreciate what I do, and they appreciate me having that bond with my audience, that I don't pull a punch, and I never will. And it's made me, lose some audience. That's true. I say it in the introduction to the book. I say, I have lost some people, and I don't miss them. Those are the more woke people.
Maher has faced non-stop criticism, even from people on his own side, but he's never backed down. Over the years, he's developed the strength to stand up to the woke mob, and he's still standing tall today. Whether you like him or not, his courage deserves respect. Even if we don't agree with all his views, Maher's willingness to challenge the extremes of the woke left is admirable. He and many others believe those policies don't bring people together. They divide, shame, and silence them. In a time when most people are afraid to speak out, Maher's bold honesty feels refreshing.
But the left, yes, went off the deep end also, in their own way. And so what I always tell people who are Democrats and liberals is, you don't have to lecture me about Donald Trump. I'm the one who was sounding the alarm bells before anybody. But I also get why people vote for him. I absolutely do. Because the stuff that, for example, you just said is in the swimming pool, and the stuff that is threatening to people that comes from the left is so much more in their everyday life. It's not vague. Like, to most people, what's Trump and democracy? It's a vague thought. And Ukraine, that's very far away. Was it impeachable? Who knows? But I know about my kid coming home from school and saying, well, they're telling me I can't tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kind of thing that bothers many people, which is why they keep pushing back against woke ideology. Maher's frustration makes sense. He's angry about the idea of biological men using women's bathrooms, calling it a clear break from common sense and boundaries. He's also upset that some schools encourage children to make big decisions, like gender transitions, without involving parents. To him, that's not progress, it's chaos pretending to be compassion. Maher's message is clear. When ideology starts to replace biology, logic, and parental rights, society loses balance. That's why he refuses to stay silent, no matter how strong the backlash becomes.
As we discussed on your show when I was a guest, suggesting to your perfectly normal son that he might be a girl. At my all-boys school, they kept asking them over and over, raise your hand.
Well,
where are you in the scale of girl to boy, 0 through 5?
I did an editorial only like 3 weeks ago, and I used the word entrapment. I mean, it was about comparing what goes on in the schools with entrapment. I don't think anybody had ever put it that way. But entrapment in the law, I'm sure you know this better than I do, means suggesting someone into a crime.
Yep.
Something they wouldn't have thought of to do anyway. I mean, I used the example of after 9/11, there were a number of cases where law enforcement basically entrapped people who were not really going to be terrorists. The one case I mentioned was the Liberty Seven guys in Liberty City, Miami, a poor section of Miami.
According to Bill Maher, the far left has developed a subtle but dangerous tactic he calls psychological entrapment. He believes they're putting ideas about gender transition into the minds of young, impressionable children. It often begins innocently. Teachers or counselors repeatedly ask kids if they've ever felt different or thought about changing their gender. At first, the children may not have considered it, but after hearing it over and over, the idea starts to grow. Constant exposure turns suggestion into curiosity, and curiosity into confusion. Maher argues this isn't about freedom or identity. It's manipulation disguised as inclusion. He warns that this kind of influence can shape young minds before they're even old enough to understand what's happening.
For people who say to me, you make fun of the left more than you used to. Yes, I do. First of all, I'm a comedian, and you're a lot funnier than you used to be. Not intentionally, but you are. Not just pregnant men and a lot of identity politics and oversensitivity and victim culture and cancel culture. There's lots of funny stuff. But if I ever needed a reason or a rationale for making the case that the left has changed, it would be this. The fact that they're now marching for the terrorists, really?
Right.
The people who see themselves as the most liberal people in the world, the social justice warriors, are standing with some of the most illiberal people in the world.
Maher finds it hard to understand how some liberals, who claim to stand for freedom, end up supporting groups and ideologies that go against everything liberalism stands for. He calls it pure hypocrisy. These groups enforce extremely harsh laws, so strict that even the most conservative people would be shocked. In their countries, women are denied basic rights. They can't vote, can't drive, and are often forced to cover their entire bodies, sometimes even their faces. The values of gender equality and personal freedom, core beliefs of liberalism, are completely crushed under these systems. So Maher asks, how can people who speak about tolerance and women's rights ignore or even support cultures that silence and oppress women? What's even more surprising, he says, is that some in the LGBTQ+ community openly support movements that, in reality, have no tolerance for them at all. These aren't groups that believe in equality or acceptance. They represent the opposite. Yet many activists in the West still show support, blinded by ideology and selective outrage.
This is one of the big problems with the left today, is they see race in everything. So, nothing ever, and again, as the guy who is trying to be the common sense person in the middle, just speak for the normies, everything, I think, to a lot of people strikes it the way it strikes me, as we start with one thing, this idea over here, and then we're all the way on the other side over here. In this issue, of course, as we were saying over there are people who are bigoted, and that's wrong. And of course, it's great that we got more impatient with racism in this country. That is the appropriate response I think we should have toward racism, being impatient with it. And then it goes all the way to, and no one who is a person of color can ever do anything wrong. That's how you get, we don't talk about China.
Maher points out another tough topic that many people avoid discussing. He says that crime isn't limited to one race. People of all backgrounds can commit crimes. Crime has no color, ethnicity, or political side. However, in today's sensitive culture, Maher sees a dangerous double standard. Crimes by white people are often highlighted and heavily discussed, while crimes by marginalized groups are sometimes ignored or excused in the name of social justice. Maher believes this imbalance destroys fairness and accountability. When guilt or innocence is judged by identity instead of actions, true justice disappears. To him, this kind of selective outrage isn't progress, it's moral decline disguised as virtue. And he believes it's important to call that out.
There's a couple of really funny editorials, essays in that book about time and the idea that the woke have this crazy idea that, people who lived 500 years ago really should have known better.
Yeah.
They have this magic moral time machine where they imagine what they would be doing in 1758, and it's always better than...
And it wouldn't have been using the term master bedroom.
No. That's another thing, yes.
Right?
And again, that's another point I'm always trying to make, is that the difference between old school liberals like me and the woke is things like that. People, I think, have this idea that wokeness is an extension of liberalism, and it very often is something that goes so far, it actually turns around and becomes the opposite.
Yes.
Bill Maher has finally had enough of the far left, and it's hard to blame him. He believes they've drifted so far from real liberalism that they're barely recognizable. Maher says these extremists no longer believe in open debate, free thinking, or tolerance, the very values that liberalism was built on. Instead, they've fallen into moral showboating and rewriting history. One of his biggest frustrations is how they judge the past using modern values. He says they act as if they would have been wiser or more just if they had lived centuries ago, which he calls unrealistic and arrogant. To Maher, this attitude proves the far left isn't focused on understanding history or improving society. They just want to look morally superior. And he believes that mindset marks the end of true, honest liberalism.
The thing that you just mentioned about master bedroom or, blacklist or these terms.
Rule of thumb.
JIP, reservation, I guess we're not supposed to say because it, insulting to the Indians. What are you supposed to say when you go to a restaurant?
There's something wrong with picnic, too. We're not allowed to say picnic anymore. I can't remember why.
We have we're supposed to eat here?
Right.
It's just, so again, wokeness seems a lot about canceling people, catching people at something, renaming stuff. Liberalism was at least about trying to fix things. It was about trying to lift people up, the people who had been forgotten, genuinely, and there are many of them, and downtrodden. These are the people we wanted to lift up. That's different than just pointing fingers and saying, I'm more pure than you are.
And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.